In this lesson, we discuss SQL injection and its impact, examine the source of its vulnerability, and provide a demo which shows how the password information in database can be revealed by injection logical expression in SQL expression statement while input data and bypass or override the condition checking in SQL commands. SQL injection is a type of injection application vulnerability attacks where SQL commands or related logical expression are injected by the hacker as part of the input and executed by the SQL server. It resulting in revealing the sensitive data such as password, credit card numbers in the SQL database. It occurs when the program does not perform the input validation. We saw it in command injection case. The input from the users are used directly or indirectly as a parameter to the later SQL queries. The SQL injection vulnerability will allow attacker to modify, execute SQL query on the victim's SQL server. The hacker can steal and create fake passwords and credential information inside the victim database. They can steal or forge other critical information inside the database, like command injection. In the same category of injection vulnerability, SQL injection is one of the #1 in OWASP Top 10 Vulnerability 2013. You can check on the URL listed here. It remains #1 in OWASP Top 10 Application Security Risk, which will be the report will publish August 2017. Unlike command injection, SQL injection focuses on attacking the SQL server, and therefore it cannot execute arbitrary OS command. Personally, I feel it's less dangerous, but same critical information could be revealed. MySQL server, which is typically run on Linux, maintains its own password file in MySQL database, very specific database called MySQL, inside its user table, a table with the name user. They are different from the password maintained by the operating system in etc shadow, typically in etc shadow in Linux system. However, for convenience or for laziness reason, system administrator too lazy, often the login and password are exactly the same created. The hacker then log in. If they break into the database, retrieve this credential information, they can then log in using the victim to the victim's system. This is called escalating of the privilege. You steal credential from one area in one of the service, you can utilize in the other service. Escalating privilege is one of the important hacking methodology steps. Here is a demo of SQL injection attack using a typical membership profile request web app. First, let us show the normal operation. In the membership profile request web app page, we enter the email address and the passwords, and then we click the submit button. If the password checkout OK, the status is shown in the active response web page coming back. Here we show SQL Injection Exploit on vulnerability of the membership profile request web app by just adding a malicious string, single quote, or 0 equals 0, another or operator, and with a ending single quote. If we insert this string right after the email address, we are able to retrieve the profile information of all the members in this particular database, including the password for access the website. Note that missing the two single quote characters or the last or operator in this malicious string will not result in the display of those password information. It's very tricky. We will explain why is that later on. The SQL query result will return SQL syntax error at line 1 if we're missing those single quote or the or operator. For example, by removing the last or operator, we will have 0 equals 0 single quote end up in the SQL where close statement, where 0 quote is not a legal term in SQL statement. Therefore, SQL query processing will reject and print out there's a syntax error. Let's examine the showme.php code to understand where the vulnerability of the SQL injection occurs. First, the code we can spot looking at the pattern. It violates the security design pattern A we discussed in the previous session. It does not check on the input right after we read in the input data, as shown in the arrow there. Furthermore, the input email is used in SQL query. The query also uses star, a wildcard character, to display all the fields in the table. And that should be changed to make it more specific. For example, instead of showing the password, we probably should result in a special request before we show the password. Remember the paradigm to replacing generic mechanism with specific mechanism. The more specific, the better the security. Here we examine how SQL query with malicious string are evaluated. By turning on the print debugging statements in the showme.php, we get the following query printout. It shows that we have single quote or 0 equals 0 or single quote kind of malicious string injected into the SQL query, as shown in the middle there. The where clause has 3 expressions all together, and we highlight the malicious string with the red colors. And it turns out there are 3 expressions. They are connected with the OR operator. The first expression, email equal single quote cchild@ucca.edu. This is the normal expression which we see in normal query. It will return true as intended, and therefore it only shows one of the rows when we examine all the rows. The second expression, 0 equals 0, is the malicious attack, which is a logic expression will return always true. And because anything true or another value, either true or false, is always returned true, we simply bypass the previous logic expression. and any of the rows in the database will then be matched and displayed. The third one is a 2 single quote character. It doesn't matter in this case since the middle logic operation already override that particular where clause to yield the true expression for all rows. This term, 2 single quote, doesn't seem to matter. Therefore, in this case, all the row information in the memory 1 table will coming back and display. And all the column will also display because we use wildcard character star.